The seven ages of man, or women, and one of the many enduring Shakespearean metaphors of life that resonates today as it would in the 16th century. Today we might use different words, but the idea of a cycle of life and death, physical, psychological development, of growth from birth to old age, is timeless. One follows the other. It's about growth and learning. We know now, of course, much more than the Elizabethans did, that successful growth and ageing is about having a good early years, and that the way to avoid an unhealthy old age is to have a happy and healthy childhood and maintain a physically and active midlife. That is if you survive your early years. In Shakespearean England, the average life expectancy was only 25 years, and 1 in 5 children died before the age of 200. Before the age of their 5th birthday. Good heavens. We've obviously been regressing ever since. Shakespeare's own son, Hamnet, not Hamlet, died at the age of 11. But today, life expectancy in England is around 80 years, and only 1 in 200 children die before the age of 5, mostly in the first 28 days of their lives. In the developing world today, the situation is better, of course. In Uganda, life expectancy is about 54 years, and only 7 in 100 children die before the age of 5. But what happens if you miss out on one or more of these important early stages of life? What happens, setting aside the chances of dying before the age of 5, what happens if you don't get the nourishment you need to grow at early stage? What happens if your experience of childhood is actually much more like an adult experience, but at a child's age, which it might be if you're married too early or you go out to work too early? What we know today is that there is a reason that we develop in stages. It's part of our human story. And if we miss out on one stage, then it need not necessarily mean death, but it can have a dramatic impact on later stages. Children all over the world miss out on happy and healthy childhoods for lots of different reasons. Some don't survive the trauma of birth or the vulnerability of early years. Some are malnourished. 1 in 3 children in the developing world are malnourished. Some suffer violence, abuse, and trauma and have to grow up too quickly. In some cases, girl children miss out on their childhoods simply because they are female. Amina lives in Pakistan. She's 35 years old now, but when she was born, her mother was malnourished, and Amina was low weight at birth. She grew slowly, but could not go to school as her brothers did because she had to stay at home and help her mother with the housework. By adolescence, the impact of her early years of undernourishment meant that her pelvic bones were misshapen and she was much shorter than she should have been. As is tradition, she was married and had her first baby when she was only 15. It was a difficult birth, and her baby was born small and low weight, and Amina has been anemic ever since. Since then, she's gone through pregnancy after pregnancy with little time to regain her strength in between and little enough food at any time. In the least developed world, 1 in 52 women die in childbirth. In industrialized countries, it's 1 in 4,700. The truth of the matter is that poverty is transmitted through the female line. And yet, and here's my big idea to share, we can do something about this. This is not a new idea, of course, and it's absolutely not mine, but it's one that I think is worth sharing. And for Amina, all it takes is this: a small sachet of important nutrients that, taken regularly, can change her life, and it costs only 2p. In an almost neighbouring country, Bangladesh, Aklima lives with her family in the capital, Dhaka. They're very poor. By the age of 12, Aklima had never been to school. Unlike 12-year-olds we may know or remember ourselves, she didn't spend her early days in a classroom. Her days were spent endlessly scavenging at the rubbish dump for bits of plastic and scraps of metal. She started this at the age of 3 and missed out on an early education, or what any of us would recognise as a childhood. Each morning, a cleaner walks to the dump with her friends, and though they chat and laugh and talk on the way, the work they do is dangerous, and cuts from plastic and glass and tins are the least of it. Around the world, 100 million children lose out on childhood education, and actually most of them are girls. It's a basic child's right, yet one that is denied so many. And yet, and here's the big idea again, that something can be done about this. And when Aklima was 12, when this photo was taken of her, she was offered a chance to attend an informal open-air school near the rubbish dump, and she's thrived in her education ever since. And here's my last story, and it's the story of Monica. This is not a picture of Monica, but it's a picture of another girl who lost her childhood through becoming a child soldier at a very early age. For protection reasons, these children don't want their identity to be known. Monica's story is a powerful one. It tells us how a child can miss out on a stage of life or have to grow up much too quickly. But like the other stories, it's a story that can be changed. My idea worth spreading, that something could be done, is true for Monica too. Monica is a teenage girl in Uganda. When we met her, she was working on a laptop at an ICT centre on the outskirts of the town where she lives. This was an unremarkable scene in many ways. However, the ICT centre is on the outskirts of Gulu, northern Uganda. Many of the young people who use it will go home to a house where the only running water is a UNICEF invention known as the tippy tap, which is literally a pulley pulling a plank of wood attached to a plastic container of water that itself is attached to a tree. The centre they go to is a place for children and young people to go to have a laugh and to learn something. And the computer kiosk outside is an innovation known as the digital drum. It's literally a computer in an old metal drum which is weatherproof and attached to the internet. This is still a relatively unremarkable story. However, when she was much younger, Monica was abducted by the locally born Joseph Kony-inspired Lord's Resistance Army and kept in the bush for 3 years. Monica doesn't talk about her time away from home. We can only imagine how it would have been for her, where she was raped frequently, fearful for her life most of the time, and that she probably went through one of the most important phases of her life as a young teenage girl, going through puberty and beginning menstruation while living under armed guard and experiencing a life that no person should experience, let alone a lonely girl. Add to that the fact that those who abducted her would certainly have included boys abducted themselves as child soldiers. At the height of fighting in Uganda, more than 1 million people in the region were moved to protected camps, and as a result they were not able to plant their crops, and hunger and severe malnutrition was widespread. The situation is different now and much better, but the impact was considerable and people feel vulnerable about the past and anxious about the future. And there's a generation of children who've grown up knowing nothing except life lived in camps, and from the unlucky ones, life as a child soldier. Monica is piecing her life together again with the support from basic running water to technical innovations to connect her to the digital age. There's also support for the health system and painstaking training for child protection committees who go deep into the community to help to build trust, even when they are often not welcome. So here again we see that something can be done to give back the experience of childhoods. Monica has a chance to make a life for herself as a confident young woman, but she will live with the impact of her early years for the rest of her life. So spread the idea that with purpose and expertise, something can be done to give girls and women back lost childhoods and reaffirm their right to the 7 stages.